Coming up on the next episode of Zuzu All Grown Up.
Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
You're now listening to Zuzu All Grown Up.
She's been featured in more than 20 films from the early days of film and television.
He is a psychotherapist and her loving husband.
Together, they are on a mission to brighten your day and your life.
It's a time to smile, a time to laugh, a time to expect more.
It's time to get inspired with your hosts, Karolyn Grimes and Dr. Chris Brunell.
It's time to meet Zuzu, all grown up.
Do you believe that life is wonderful in principle, but for some reason just isn't so consistently in practice? Every life will have its ups and downs. But have you ever thought that if there were only more people around you encouraging, uplifting, and even inspiring you, then life would be more fulfilling? If only people like George and Mary Bailey were in your inner circle, then life could truly be wonderful all the time? If so, we've got good news for you, because you can find such people on this podcast and at zuzunetwork.com. This podcast is the vision of Karolyn Grimes, Zuzu, and Dr. Chris Brunell, illustrating how the timeless message of It's a Wonderful Life can be and is applied to our modern lives and situations. Indeed, when you take that message to heart, your life will become immeasurably more wonderful. Visit us at zuzunetwork.com and listen to this podcast series to learn more about how. Now sit back, relax, and get ready to enjoy another episode of Zuzu, All Grown Up.
People have found hope and inspiration from It's a Wonderful Life in many forms and ways. But our next guest says you can find God in It's a Wonderful Life. And he's written an entire book to show us how.
Get ready for miracles. Get ready for Zuzu. All Grown Up.
Today's guest is a great friend of the show and of Karolyn and Dr. Chris, Pastor Greg Asimakoupoulos. Let's listen in live on their conversation now.
Today we have a very special guest. I want to tell you a little more about him, but first we have to get his name. And he's a friend of mine. I've known him for years, and I still can't pronounce his name. His name is Greg to me. Greg, would you pronounce your last name?
Asimakoupoulos.
See what I mean?
And backwards, it's Solupukamasa.
Oh my God, that's him. Well, Greg is a pastor, and he has been a friend for many, many years, as I said. Greg has taken the messages from the film It's a Wonderful Life, and he's written a great book, Finding God in It's a Wonderful Life. So I'm really pleased and excited we are to have you with us today.
Yeah. It's a wonderful life to have you here with us today. Pastor Greg, will you please share who you are and where you reside?
Well, that's a question that I can easily answer. My wife and I live on Mercer Island in suburban Seattle. I grew up not far from here in the community in central Washington known as Wenatchee on the Columbia River, known for its fruit orchards and now vineyards. It's interesting how the grape vineyards are taking over the apple orchards. And my wife and I have 3 grown daughters, 2 granddaughters. So I'm pleased to be with you guys today. It's true. I think it was back in 2005, Karolyn, that I met you personally for the first time when you guys were living in the greater Seattle area and you were involved in a radio drama of It's a Wonderful Life at Bellevue College.
That's true. That was where we met the first time.
Yeah. So let's begin with you sharing some of your backstory and how you've been a blessing to so many in your role as a pastor and spiritual advisor.
Well, this year is a milestone year for me. It's the 45th anniversary of becoming a pastor. Wow. And serving congregations in California, Illinois, and Washington State. And I started out as a bachelor pastor Wendy re-entered my life. I had known her in college. 50 years ago, we graduated this summer, but we never dated in college. In fact, it's kind of funny. She dated my roommate for most of our college years, and then we went our separate ways. She didn't end up with my roommate. I actually dated her roommate as well. And neither of us discovered that those people that we were in relationship with were probably meant for a long-term situation. So we went our separate ways. And after I was pastoring a church in the Seattle area back in 1982, we got married, proceeded to move to these various locations where I have served congregations. The last 10 years of my ministry career prior to retirement, and I guess that's how you say it. I'm still getting used to the word. I'm not sure I know what it means. But the last 10 years before I retired, I was the full-time chaplain at a senior adult retirement community on Mercer Island in what I view as probably the most meaningful and fulfilling years of ministry for me. I just loved what I did. And Karolyn, you had a couple of opportunities to come and talk about the film during my years there, and people are still talking about that with much gratitude.
Well, it was a beautiful place to work, right on the lake, gorgeous views and lovely people. I had very good experiences there several times that I went there. It was fun. So can you share what happened to you in 1974 when you graduated? Why this movie, It's a Wonderful Life? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, so that's really true. 50 years ago, I graduated from college. 50 years ago, I started my first job, which incidentally was working at Seattle Pacific University, my alma mater. That Christmas season of 74, I took my mom to see It's a Wonderful Life at a little vintage theater in the University District of Seattle. Was not prepared for what I was about to. My cousin had told me that it had become a family tradition for them to go to this little out-of-the-way theater every holiday season to watch it. And he said, Greg, I think you would enjoy it. And so I asked my mom if she'd be my date. And that was the first time I met George Bailey and little Zuzu and the rest of the Bailey family. And they've been best friends ever since. I couldn't believe it. I left the theater wiping tears from my eyes, which isn't all that unusual. And in fact, the last scene in the movie where Harry Bailey toasts his big brother George, that still causes me to choke up. It's almost automatic, and I'm not ashamed to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in 1993, at the Target stores, and I see that you have some of those ornaments with us today, had a large Christmas decorations with pictures of some of the Wonderful Life characters. What did you ask the manager of the Target store near your home if you could do with them? And what do you do with them now as you speak about the movie?
Yeah, I use those in the back today just to celebrate the fact that way back then, I had the courage to ask the manager, and we actually wasn't in our town. We were celebrating Christmas with my wife's family down in Southern California. And at the local Target store there in Santa Ana, they were getting ready to get rid of the publicity that was hanging in the store. And I asked the manager, I said, is it possible that I could take a couple of those? He gave me 4. And I've hung on to them for what's that now? Almost, 31 years. They've traveled with us, our moves to Illinois and back to Washington, and every house that we've lived in. I have a special place where I keep them. And on occasions when I have opportunity to speak about the book or talk about the movie and my friendship with surviving members of the cast, I haul them out and use them as a backdrop, like I'm doing today.
Well, when you met me at the Bellevue Community College, did you know I was going to be there?
Dave Selvig, who was one of the other actors, he is a retired Boeing engineer, whose lifelong dream has been to be an actor. So when he finally retired from his day job, he started finding bit parts in community theater and ended up being part of the cast in that production of It's a Wonderful Life radio drama. And he knew, because where every church that I've gone to, it leaks out that this is my favorite movie. And so because of that, he said, Greg, I would love you to come and watch the production, not just because I'm in it, but because I think I could get you backstage and you could meet Karolyn Grimes. So yes, I did know that you were going to be in that production. So I had two reasons for going.
Well, you and I and Chris have been friends from that day on. Can you share what it means spiritually to have the support of friends to help you on your journeys through life?
Well, you know what Clarence wrote inside the cover of the Huckleberry Finn book, the Tom Sawyer book, that no man is a failure who has friends. That is obviously something that you could lift right out of the Bible. There is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. And that is bottom line message of what I've preached as a pastor for 45 years. The creator of our universe, of which we are part of, has desired relationship with us and models that through friendship. What was it, the great commandment that, here's what Jesus actually says, thou shalt love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. Like two wings of a Boeing aircraft. I know Boeing hasn't had the best reputation in recent months, especially when certain parts don't stay glued together. But what's true of Boeing airplanes is they need two wings to fly. And that's the truth in this, what's been called the Great Commandment, to love the Lord and to love each other. In both aspects of that, we find friendship, which is helping us hold our lives together. I remember visiting you guys in your home there in Fall City and seeing that collection of crosses that you had at the time. I don't know if those crosses have made the moves with you as you guys have moved from place to place, but I was impressed by seeing at the time what was kind of a symbolic gesture to the fact that faith has been important in your lives.
So as a pastor, you often help people deal with the challenges in their lives. And this must be a rewarding experience for you, a lot to deal with emotionally. How do you balance your own life issues with helping so many with theirs?
Boy, that's a good question. I haven't always been successful in that. In fact, it was 1990 as a young pastor, a young father, leading a growing congregation in Northern California. I hit the wall and fell into the basement of clinical depression and recognized at that point, and in the year-long therapy that helped me find my footing again, I realized that I had not been keeping balance and that is essential for me to be a healthy caregiver, is I have to take care of myself. It's a double-edged sword. One of my strengths is empathy and compassion, but when that is given full rein and I don't look in the mirror and see that there is the need for me to be compassionate and set boundaries so that I'm not wearing myself out, I learned the hard way. And gratefully, I think my wife would agree with this. By the way, she was part of my healing and recovery, to be that unconditional, loving resource in my life, helping me to feel good and not feel guilty about setting boundaries and recognizing that I needed to learn that two-letter word that had difficulty coming out of my mouth, and that being no. I typically would say yes to everything, and I learned that that there were times when it was most appropriate and the best answer to say no, that I might say yes in a healthy way.
You can probably identify with that as a psychologist.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, balance is important for all of us, especially those that give of ourselves. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Wow. I think I wouldn't do very well because my heart would be open and it would just suck all that in.
Yeah, that's true.
And I understand that.
It's hard. You
It
want
is hard.
to be giving. You want to give of yourself.
That's true.
But then there's, you
There's
have
a limit.
Yeah, exactly.
Will you share with us how you were approached to write your book, Finding God and It's a Wonderful Life, and how it continues to be a fan favorite?
Yeah, that was an interesting story. Obviously, it all began with the fact that we became friends. I invited you after meeting you at the Bellevue Community College production some months later to come, and you were gracious enough to allow me to interview you on a Sunday morning in front of the congregation. And then you were keeping me apprised of other appearances where you and Chris were. And so our friendship began to grow. A publisher back in Chicago discovered this and asked if I would be possibly interested in writing your story.
We'll join Karolyn and Chris in just a moment with more of Zuzu All Grown Up.
First, an important message.
Start your morning right with premium coffee roasts available at ZuzuNetwork.com and drink them in your Zuzu All Grown Up coffee mug. Also perfect for tea and hot chocolate.
Stay inspired throughout the day with the same gratitude journal used by Karolyn and Chris, and check out t-shirts, hats, books, Christmas keepsakes, and more at ZuzuNetwork.com/shop.
Are you wondering whether to sell or donate the car you no longer need or want? Consider that. Donating it to a legitimate, legally recognized nonprofit organization, not only will you receive a tax deduction, but you'll be contributing to a worthy cause. Finding a worthy nonprofit organization can be time-consuming and even a bit stressful. I'm here to present to you one of the most amazing, legitimate 501c3 nonprofit organizations in the world. The United Breast Cancer Foundation. The UBCF provides screenings, treatments, aftercare services, educational materials, as well as patient and family assistance. We ask that you help in that mission by donating your unwanted or unused vehicle to the UBCF. Simply call 888-842-5505. The process is fast and easy. Call 888-842-5505. 888-842-5505. Help us in our mission and get a tax deduction. Call 888-842-5505. Thank you for your support.
A careless driver can change your life in an instant. Do you know what to do or who to call? If you've been injured in a motor vehicle accident and don't have an attorney, call Auto Accident Help Desk for a free consultation. We can answer all of your questions and estimate the potential value of your case. Call Auto Accident Help Desk and connect with an expert personal injury attorney.
Call 800-297-9766. 800-297-9766.
Don't worry how to handle your medical bills, lost wages, and pain. We will get you the money you deserve.
They got me way more than the insurance company offered.
The consultation is free, and you don't pay any legal fees unless we win or settle your case. Make the smart call if you've been injured in an auto accident. Call Auto Accident Help Desk for a free legal consultation.
Call 800-297-9766. 800-297-9766. 800-297-9766.
Auto Accident Help Desk.
Join Zuzu's network today at ZuzuNetwork.com/join.
Karolyn is creating an international network of aspiring angels, everyday people who believe that they can help make the world a better place by making life better for even just one other person.
Let us know you want to earn your wings at ZuzuNetwork.com/join, and Karolyn and Chris will send you inspirational material to support you in your journey.
We're back with more Zuzu All Grown Up.
And at that time, I was so busy with a number of irons in the fire that I said, you know, as much as I would love to do that, I don't have the margins to be able to do that. So I have to regrettably say no. A couple of months after that, the same publisher came back to me and said, okay, let me try this. Would you be willing to write a devotional book based on some of the spiritual themes that I understand you've identified in the movie? Is that possible? Not a biography, but more of a book of reflection and illustrations with a faith component. And I said, you know what? I don't even need to think about that. I'd be happy to do that. And I ran with it. It took me all of 6 weeks to write the book. I have a copy here.
That's good.
It's actually come in 2 editions. This is the original edition, and it's been republished in a second edition for the 75th anniversary of the film a few years ago. Gratefully, the print is a little bit larger in the anniversary edition, for which I'm grateful now that I've reached the ripe old age of 72. I don't read 11-point font real easy anymore without my cheaters. Mm-hmm. So it took me 6 weeks to write it. I discovered even though I did go back and watch the movie again, that I didn't need to, because over the years, those scenes had become so locked into my memory that I could kind of walk through the movie and pull out those God sightings, I call them, without needing to go back and read the script. Again, I downloaded the script because it was available, watched the movie a couple of times, but in 6 weeks' time, the book was written and publisher was pleased. And I think you were too, because you carried it for a few years in your appearances. Mm-hmm. And that was when we first were able to collaborate. You know, one of my favorite things that I like to say when I talk about the book, Finding God in It's a Wonderful Life. One, I see in George Bailey a Christ figure, and I can talk about that later. But the other thing is you actually can find God in the movie. H.B. Warner, who played Mr. Gower in the film, 17 years earlier, was in another movie by Cecil B. DeMille, King of Kings, in which Mr. Warner played Jesus. So you can find God in It's a Wonderful Life.
That's an interesting point. I knew he had played that part, but I hadn't put it in conjunction with that. Very good. Well, you've recently returned after spending several months as an interim pastor at the International Church in Switzerland.
Oh, man, yes.
I saw several pictures of your adventure on Facebook. How was that? How did you like that?
Oh, man. Beyond anything we could have imagined. It was amazing. The country is beautiful, pristine, clean. The people are marvelously friendly, a bit more reserved than we Americans. But as you can imagine, Lucerne is not the largest city in Switzerland by any means. It's only about 80,000 people, but it's located in the midst of the Alps on Lake Lucerne. And because of its neutral position in the war, the buildings during World War II were not bombed out. The medieval city, walled city from 700 years ago, is still standing. You can walk on top of the wall. We walked up inside one of the clock towers to see a clock that has continued to function and chime for all those hundreds of years. Amazing. And there we were living in the building that the church was located in, just 10-minute walk from this medieval town. They encouraged us to travel and see as much of the area as we could, so we took Switzerland's amazingly wonderful transportation system, both in terms of buses and trains. If you guys have not been there, it's amazing. We could learn a lot from how the Swiss have discovered how to be efficient, clean, timely, and it was wonderful.
So in your book, Finding God in Its Wonderful Life, each chapter has a theme that relates to a scene in the movie. Please share what you mean by a few of these examples, like, for instance, when God sends an angel instead of money.
Yeah, well, that's a good one too. When God sends an angel, as he did in the film, it wasn't exactly what George Bailey was expecting. You know, the need was the missing money, but rather than answering prayer in the way that George was expecting, it came indirectly. I've discovered in my life as a person of faith that even though I ask God for specific answers to prayer, that the Almighty's tendency is to provide the answer in ways that I'm not necessarily looking for, often through people, often through circumstances. There's that scene with the banister that continues to pop out of, the staircase, the banister knob. That to me is an indication of the imperfections in life, living in a broken world filled with fragile and imperfect people. There are issues that are chronic in our lives that we can't fix on our own. And again, that's a chapter that looks at some of the irregularities in people and in circumstances that are a reminder that we aren't the end all and that we need God. I take the word hallelujah and spell that out as an acronym with various words. You know, when George is asked by his little boy, how do you spell hallelujah? Well, that gave me an idea. Okay, let me actually spell that out with words that comprise the way that God answers issues that we bring to him in prayer. As I said, George Bailey is a Christ figure. His relationship with Violet Bick is one in which I see the way that Jesus related to some of the women of the night with whom he encountered. We read about in the Gospels, and rather than being judgmental, he risks being maligned, his reputation being smudged by his willingness to come alongside people who need help. And even though he could be guilty by association, he's willing to take that chance in order to give the individual what that individual needs. Mm-hmm. The Potter scene in the bank where Mr. Potter is tempting George to come and work for him. What a great parallel with Jesus in the wilderness being tempted by Satan. And he's willing, he almost, as he reaches that hand to shake and feels that icy cold grip of Mr. Potter, and then discovers that no, he's not going to give in to what seemed like an attractive, tempting offer. Throughout the movie, even though Frank Capra never intended some of the metaphors that I give spiritual application to, they are there indirectly with a person who has the eyes to see them.
Yeah, I never put that together quite like you just did with Mr. Potter and Jimmy as they were just about to shake hands. Thank you for highlighting that. Do you have a favorite chapter? And if not, is it one that you've already mentioned?
I think my favorite chapter is Dancing in the Midst of Adversity, which is seen coming out of the basketball court that opens up, revealing the swimming pool. One of the fun factoids in my ministry here in Seattle area was before becoming chaplain at the retirement community, I had a lady in my church who actually went to Beverly Hills High School and remembers that swim gym and told me all about, her personal experiences with that. So that's fun to realize that scene was shot in an actual place that, as I understand it, continues to be operational.
Yes.
There, as the Charleston contest takes place, as they fall back into the water, they continue to dance. That gave me a wonderful foundation on which to build a chapter about the adversity that all of us face in life. Each of us has been blindsided by tragedy, tragic circumstances, the death of a child, the death of a marriage, unexpected unemployment, go on and on and on. We have a choice. Are we going to simply sink, or are we going to continue to dance? And I use this chapter to tell the true life story of my Norwegian grandfather, an immigrant from Norway who came to this country in 1905 as a 20-year-old. He was a victim of infantile polio. He was hunchbacked, crippled, walked with a severe limp, had to have special shoes made. He didn't marry till he was 36. He had 3 kids, and each of them ended up in ministry. My uncle, a pastor. My aunt married a pastor. My mom married a pastor. My mom and dad had a pastor's son. And out of that young immigrant who found his way scratching out a living, becoming a successful businessman in Seattle, raising a family that would grow to love the Lord, and then extend their experiences of faith through their own spheres of influence with those who were part of their congregations. I saw in him my own George Bailey, who continued to dance in the midst of adversity. I think that would be my favorite chapter.
I like that. Finding God in It's a Wonderful Life has questions for reflection. At the end of each chapter, how can readers use these to get more out of their experience reading the book?
Well, there's a couple ways. I think most people read the book on their own. just privately. But there are others, and I've been in churches where I've been invited to give a sermon on the book or the gospel according to George Bailey. I gave that message once at Seneca Falls at one of the festival weekends, where churches actually use the book for small group discussion. And say during the Christmas season, they would use Advent as an opportunity to show the movie ahead of time or at the end of the 6 weeks and have their Sunday school class or small group meeting in homes read the book and then use the questions at the end of each chapter as questions to personalize the message.
So when you've presented your book at different venues, what type of questions do the audience members usually ask you?
Well, they tend to ask about my own experience of how the movie became important to me. They always ask about my friendship with Karolyn and other members of cast. In subsequent years, I got to know Carol Mueller and her family. Lo and behold, I was instrumental in introducing her to my in-laws pastor in Southern California to be interviewed on a Christmas Eve morning. And as a result of that interview that Carol and Chet did with Pastor Doug Rumford, they started attending that church, and they're still there. And that's probably been 10 years ago. So that's kind of fun. But people ask about my relationship with those associated with the film. Monica Capra Hodges lives just an hour north of where Wendy and I do, and we have opportunity to connect throughout the year. So those things are fun. Other people want to know if what I've written in the book is timeless or does it change depending on, it's been 50 years since I saw the movie. It's been how many years? Coming up on 80 years since the movie was filmed. What is timeless and what is culturally transitional?
We'll join Karolyn and Chris in just a moment with more of Zuzu All Grown Up.
First, an important message.
To find out more about the organization featured in today's episode or a previous episode and to learn more about how you can help, go to zuzunetwork.com/beanangel.
Most people out here think that taking care of one another is important. And most people would step up for a neighbor going through a tough time. Most people around here help out friends and family when they need it. But the funny thing is, most of us won't look for help when we need it. Talk to someone if you're struggling with mental health, because most people out here really care. Find more information at loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
This is an important announcement for anyone who wants health insurance, even if you missed the deadline. That's right. Don't worry if you missed the deadline for open enrollment. Right now, you can get the health insurance you and your family need from top insurance providers, even if you have pre-existing conditions or no insurance at all. The Plus Benefits Health Insurance toll-free number has been extended to help anyone who wants health insurance coverage now, or anyone who just needs a better plan or a lower price. Did you miss the penalty deadline, have a baby, get married, or get dropped from your plan? Don't worry, plans are available now, and in just minutes, we will help you find the right plan that's best for you and your budget. Call Plus Benefits Health Insurance now at 800-332-1993. The call is 100% free and the help is real. You can finally get health insurance that's right for you. But hurry and get covered before it's too late.
Call 800-332-1993 now to find the best plan at the lowest price. Call 800-332-1993. That's 800-332-1993. 800-332-1993.
Imagine having all the money you need for retirement, all the income, every month, guaranteed. That's Secure Future Investor. Secure Future utilizes an indexed annuity tied to growth in the U.S. stock market, but without any risk of loss ever. That's right. No matter what happens in the market, your investment can never decline. Down years, you're insured against any losses. Boom years, your retirement account grows exponentially to increase your worth. Whether the market is up or down, Secure Future Investor can set you up with guaranteed money-for-life income. It's the difference between thinking you have enough money to retire and knowing you're getting that retirement check every single month for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live. Over 40 years old? Call now, 888-288-7088, 888-288-7088. Sponsored by GP Agency, Inc., Raleigh, North Carolina. Licensed in all states. Performance may vary. Consult with your financial professional before making an investment decision.
1 out of 8 women in the United States will be diagnosed with breast cancer in her lifetime. And the chances are you know at least one person who's been personally affected. But right now, you can help. It's simple. Donate your unwanted vehicle, RV, or trailer to the United Breast Cancer Foundation. It's the easiest way to contribute to one of the nation's leading charitable organizations. The process is fast, easy, and free. Not only will you be helping, but you'll also receive a tax deduction. The United Breast Cancer Foundation offers an array of programs and services that help and support families and individuals dealing with breast cancer. But we can't do it alone. We need your help. Simply give us a call to get started, and we'll schedule a pickup date that is convenient for you. If you have any questions you would like answered before initiating the donation process, please feel free to call us toll-free at 800-324-6218. That's 800-324-6218. 800-324-6218.
Zuzu's book club features recommendations from Zuzu herself on books she loves and thinks you will love also. All of the books that the club reads, fiction and nonfiction, are inspirational and uplifting. Folks, this is a life-enhancing club to be part of. You can sign up for free at zuzunetwork.com/book club. That's zuzunetwork.com/book club. Today's featured book for the Zuzu Book Club is Finding God in It's a Wonderful Life by author and today's guest, Pastor Greg
Asimakoupoulos.
Each chapter highlights an important movie scene, relationship, or theme, and makes a spiritual point. Even those who haven't seen the film will understand the plot as Greg describes it. And people who know the movie so well they can recite the dialogue will find themselves nodding in agreement, appreciating Greg's thoughtful insights. The chapters are concise and written in an engaging style, an easy read. That's Finding God in It's a Wonderful Life by author and today's guest, Pastor Greg
Asimakoupoulos.
And be sure to check out Pastor Greg's daily inspirational series, My Rhymes and Reasons, airing on Wonderful Living TV and available at sincerelyuplifting.com.
This is Zuzu, all grown up.
And that's a little bit harder to answer because I love the movie as it's locked in its historical time frame, its framework. And so I don't like to speculate about what would be different if George Bailey were living today. Interestingly enough, just yesterday, I do a daily meditation that is carried by the Wonderful Life Network. And I was filming next week's episodes at an abandoned cemetery in Georgetown of Seattle. Interestingly, in Georgetown, which is the northern border of Boeing Field, our general aviation airport in Seattle, the northern border of Boeing Field is Bailey Road in Georgetown. Isn't that interesting? And in Georgetown neighborhood, there is this abandoned cemetery that was opened in 1895. And I walked through it yesterday for the first time. And there were a couple of headstones, the Bailey sisters. And the date on the headstone was like 1909. So very close to what in Pottersville in the film, George and Clarence come upon Harry Bailey's grave. And that's about the date that would be engraved on the stone. It was really interesting.
Wow. Well, now beyond the book, you've been busy with your video devotionals, Rhymes and Reasons. Will you share with us what that is all about?
I'd love to share with you about that because it came out of another time of adversity and learning how to dance in the midst of adversity. During COVID, when I was chaplain at Covenant Shores, the retirement community on Mercer Island, we went into lockdown. And whereas we had been accustomed to having live in-person worship and in-person programming, all that was called to a halt. And so I had to put on a thinking camp as to how to create devotional, spiritual, faith-based programming for our 350 residents since we couldn't meet in person. So we started pre-recording worship service in an empty sanctuary. We started creating, with the help of YouTubes and other pre-recorded videos online, a Sunday evening program. And then our boss said, Greg, would you produce a daily 5-minute video meditation that the residents could begin the day with? And I've always had kind of a love of producing and creatively finding ways to express meaningful thoughts and ideas. I said, okay, I'll take that as a challenge. And so beginning back in March of 2020, I've been doing these daily 5-minute devotionals Monday through Friday. And when I left a year ago, retired from retirement community, I've continued because I had a following. So I find, even though, it's for a smaller but growing group of people, I find it a challenge to continue to do that and to find God in my wonderful life.
If one thing that you want our audience to know about how your life's work in the book, Finding God in His Wonderful Life, have filled the lives of others, what would that be?
To recognize, I think, that we are all like George Bailey. Not only is he a Christ figure, he is a picture of each person, man and woman, boy and girl, a person with dreams, hopes, aspirations, a desire to shake the dust from this sleepy little town and make something of our lives. And yet we are encountered with challenges that derail our dreams. And we have a choice. On my Tuesday, My Rhymes and Reason broadcast, I typically say it's a Tuesday. Some people I know who live outside of the Seattle area have a way of saying Tuesday. And so I say today's a Tuesday, and we have an opportunity to choose whether the glass is half empty or half full. Are we going to trust God, or are we going to rely on our own resources? How are we going to do? Going to be positive, going to find fault, be grateful, be critical. Every day is a Tuesday. So I guess that's how I would answer that question. Other thing that I want to make sure that is mentioned is the fact that there's another book about It's a Wonderful Life that's called Zuzu's Wonderful Life and other poems. I write a blog every Friday that is where the phrase My Rhymes and Reasons come from. There's a written blog that's an online, mostly poetry posting, and then there are these video daily podcasts. But the book, and here's a picture that I love that was done at the Mercer Island, and Sam Wainwright's, the guy that played Sam Wainwright in the movie, one of his cousins was actually in attendance at that book signing that night. Anyway, this particular book with illustrations by our friend Joe is a collection of poetry that relates to scenes in the movie. I love to write rhymes. I love to write, it's not serious poetry, but it's as good as I get. In terms of just reflecting, Edgar Guest was my hero when it come to poetry. He would write little doggerel in every day's edition of the Detroit Free Press. And even though he lived and died before I was born, I became introduced to Edgar Guest's poetry, and I said, I want to be like that. I don't care if everybody can make sense of my attempts at poetry. Most serious poets, you have to have a PhD in order to understand the allegory and metaphors involved. I don't want to be that kind of a poet. I want to be an everybody, every day, every man's sort of rhymer that takes a truth of life and says it in such a way that it becomes memorable. And so that's what that little volume is comprised of. It's a Wonderful Life images related to Violet Bick or Ernie and Bert. Even the beginning chapter is about your life, Zuzu, and why in the midst of your own adversity, you've had a pretty wonderful life.
That's true. So if anyone is listening today, would you like to purchase a copy of your book? And how would they go about doing that?
The easiest way is to go to the publisher that has republished Finding God in It's a Wonderful Life in the anniversary edition, which is lulu.com, not the clothing company, but the publishing company. Lulu, L-U-L-U, kind of sounds like Zuzu, doesn't it? Lulu.com. And then they can just type in Finding God in It's a Wonderful Life, Zuzu's Wonderful Life, and there are other of my more recent books that are found there as well. Lulu.com.
So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Greg. It was good seeing you again.
It's like we walked through old times again, sort of.
I know it.
Wonderful memories.
Timeless.
Wonderful memories. And if I could just, I've alluded to it, but that Friday blog is found at simply myrhymesandreasons.com. And that changes every week. And that I've been writing for the last 20 years. Every week. Haven't missed a week in all those years. And typically pick up on a item in current events, popular culture, or something that I've been noodling as a retired pastor and want to share with my friends.
Did you just get a new son-in-law?
I did last Sunday, and today is his 40th birthday.
Oh.
So why don't you say happy birthday to Spencer Scott Moore, the husband of Lauren Starr Asimakoupoulos.
Oh, no, I can't say that.
Happy birthday, Spencer.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll probably see you again soon, I hope.
I hope so, too. Looking forward to it.
Okay.
I'd like to thank Pastor Greg for being on the show today. And I think we'll all look at It's a Wonderful Life just a bit differently now. What a tremendous interview and insight. We'll be right back.
Do you know someone who is earning their wings? Someone practicing kindness and service to others? Perhaps an organization or initiative helping make the world we live in a kinder, sweeter place.
Or maybe you've witnessed the miraculous, the divine, the magnificent in some way in your life, and you'd like to share it with others. Go to zuzunetwork.com/tellmystory and let us know more.
You may end up being featured on an upcoming episode of Zuzu All Grown Up. That's zuzunetwork.com/tellmystory. Now here's Seth Kennedy with today's parting thoughts.
Please, God, let me live again. These famous words from It's a Wonderful Life echo a sentiment that many of us have shared. When we seem to have given up on life, we have an epiphany and say words very similar to George's in the movie. God, we want to live again. God wants us to have a wonderful life. And we here at Zuzu, All Grown Up, want you, dear listeners, to have a wonderful life. That's why we create this content for you. We hope you are enjoying and will stay engaged with us through our website, social media, and in person. For now, I'm Seth Kennedy, and you've been listening to Zuzu, All Grown Up. This year, 2025, is the year of Christmas. Every month on the 25th, that's 25-25, we'll be featuring a special Christmas-related episode of Zuzu, All Grown Up. Join us in our experiment to keep the true spirit and meaning of Christmas throughout the year and see the difference that it can make in our lives. It's been asked, what if we could take that same spirit of Christmas and keep it throughout the year? This year, we'll hopefully discover the answer, and we believe we will be all the better and richer for it. So join us on the 25th of each month of the year 2025 for a special Christmas episode of Zuzu, All Grown Up.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Zuzu All Grown Up.
We hope you've been inspired to live your most wonderful life now and to help those around you do the same.
Remember, no matter what you're going through, no matter who you are, there are people who care about you, and your life makes a difference.
It is a wonderful life.
Check out ZuzuNetwork.com for more on today's and other episodes, including transcripts and merchandise you won't want to be without.
New episodes are coming soon.
For transcripts of today's broadcast, go to ZuzuNetwork.com/transcripts. Zuzu All Grown Up with your hosts Karolyn Grimes and Dr. Chris Brunell.
Announcer and guide Seth Kennedy.
Executive producer Kevin R. Stillmock.
Coordinating producer Holly Ann Way.
Technical producer Stella Joel.
Managing producer Karina Filatova. A Wonderful Land production.
In collaboration with Radio Wonderful.